Hey guys, welcome back to another topic. Wanted to cover why it is so difficult to see the truth on what you're dealing with, and it's a tough situation that I personally have seen over and over again, and I see it with people who have the direction that they need to go right in front of them. It's really weird because most of the time, the answers are plainly there. But we don't want to see them. We don't want it to be true. So we fight those answers and ignore and pretend that that reality doesn't exist. It's almost as if you're looking at a math equation and someone says 3 plus 3 is 6. And for whatever reason, you don't want it to be. And it's difficult oftentimes to take that step back and just look at the raw facts, look at the reality, and really see it. It's kind of funny because I can think about the math analogy that I was just using. Because when I was a kid, I had a hard time with math. For the longest time, it didn't make sense to me. And when someone would say the answer, this is how you do it, I didn't want to believe it. I wanted it to, it just didn't make sense. And I think that this is is very similar to the situation we find ourselves in, where you are seeing by the person's actions, not their words, but by their actions of what is really going on. Oftentimes this is demonstrated as them not really loving, respecting, appreciating you. It's the complete opposite. It's actions that demonstrate that they have a disdain for you, that they don't care about you, and ultimately that they don't necessarily love you. The problem is you don't want that to be true. You get in these situations and you connect with your spouse or this person in this relationship. It could even be a parent, a really good friend. And even though the reality is right there, you know it. You feel it. You feel it in the back of your head, in your heart. You know something's wrong. The problem is, or the fundamental reality of this, is we can't see this until we're ready to see it. It took me in my situation over 20 years, 2 decades, to really see that something was wrong. It's hard to see that reality. It's hard to look at your life, look at the situation, and accept that it was a facade, that it wasn't real. The other thing about this is oftentimes this isn't directly related to, it's directly related to the person, the main person that's really kind of been the catalyst for this. But there's this whole laundry list of past experiences, more than likely with your family, your parents, grandparents, somebody who's really close to you. And you've kind of buried that deep down in, in your heart. And you don't want to confront that because and this subconsciously. You don't know this in the beginning parts of this. You'll realize this later, but you don't know that it's because of that. But that subconscious part of it does know. So you don't want to confront the fact that you didn't have the love and the attention that you probably should have had growing up. So you deflect it. You either ignore it, you don't want to see it, and you basically continue down this negative path because in a lot of ways it feels safer. It feels easier, but I'll tell you that it's not. It's like having a wound, a physical wound that you don't treat, you just ignore, and it just gets worse and worse and worse. And every day, every week, every month, every year that you put off dealing with it, it causes more and more damage, and it ultimately becomes much more difficult to heal from. And the damage sometimes is permanent. I think that in a lot of ways we have a lot of ability to recover from these things, but it'll just make it longer and harder to ultimately recover from. So the question is, how do you start to unravel this problem? How do you clear the fog, clean the glasses to where you start to see and accept and confront the truth? I think one of the biggest ways is by journaling. You want to journal on what is going on, how you're feeling, what the person is doing, how that makes you feel, what the trigger points are, and how you're trying to deal with it and how you're trying to heal from it. And what you'll notice as you start doing that, a lot of times you'll be basically writing the same thing, and you'll see a common thread where you continue to effectively try the same things over and over again, but we're expecting a different result. We're stuck in this loop where you're wanting this truth that you know in the back of your mind is real to not be real, and you're wanting the person to do something different. But the fundamental truth is it's like a math equation. It's like if 2 + 2 is 4, and your partner is 4, and you don't want it to be that way, so you effectively keep saying, "Hey, what's 2 + 2?" And they say 4, and you're like, "No, it's not 4, it's 7." And you go back and you say, a little bit later, you do the exact same thing, expecting a different result. The reality is, they are who they are, and you are who you are. And that means that relationship probably was created because of a past experience that was created because of another past experience, which is hard to confront. So ultimately, getting back to how do you start to unravel this, is you got to start asking yourself the question. You have to ask yourself, are your actions producing the desired results that you want? Like I said, we often look at the other person and expect them to change. But is what you're doing causing, or not causing, but is it resulting in positive change? Is it getting you closer to the life that you want? We can stick our head in the sand and not want to confront the reality. But at the end of the day, are you achieving any of the results that you want? And the answer, especially if you're here, the answer is no. You're absolutely not. But here's the thing. Here's the key part of this that everybody needs to remember. And that is you have the power to change you. You get to decide when enough is enough and when you want more out of your life, out of your relationships, and that you decide to take control. It's amazing. We have so much power in this, but at the same time, we feel powerless. We feel trapped. The thing is, this takes a lot of time to see the truth. I have seen this so many times in my personal life, even with me. I've seen it with family and friends, and I've absolutely seen it with members of the channel, viewers and commenters and coaching clients. And it's okay that it takes time. You can't expect to wake up overnight. I mean, it would be phenomenal if you could. If you would have the epiphany, you would see the reality, and you would be like, oh my God, I get it now. But it takes time. It's a painful process. And oftentimes when you're going through the process of, peeling back the layers, so to speak, you're gonna come across other wounds. Most of the time, this stuff happens because we're trying to deal with a past trauma. You find somebody who kind of replicates what you went through before, and then your subconscious is basically saying, I'm going to go through this situation again, kind of like what I was talking about before, where you're trying to do the same thing and expecting a different result. So you find the same situation, the same scenario, and you're thinking, this time it'll be different. This time, this person will love me. This time, this person will appreciate me. I'll put myself out there and it will make all the difference. The reality is we have to do that for ourselves. And when we do that, when we realize that you are lovable, that you are worthy, that, if this spouse didn't, and then the one before didn't, and maybe your father wasn't in your life, and maybe you had an abusive mother, and maybe your siblings didn't get along because it was a toxic nightmare of a relationship, and you have all this past that you've drug into your situation now, and you're expecting everything else to confirm or to validate this view that isn't true. And again, at the end of the day, we're the ones who do it. It's amazing. It's hard. Oh my God, I'll tell you, it is hard to confront that past. It's hard to to walk through that proverbial door, to awaken, to be able to see the reality, but it's absolutely achievable. And if you're able to document and journal and keep track of your growth, then you'll be able to see the progress that you've been making and know that you're headed in the right direction. And then it won't be so difficult to see the truth. I'll catch you on the next video. Take care.